Howdy folks, I'm Colonel Sanders and you're not. And apparently I need to make this video again. The folks on TikTok are starting to understand it. The folks on Instagram are kind of understanding it, and the people here on YouTube are not getting it at all. When it comes to the 11 herbs and spices, nobody is going to figure out what the whole thing is, right? I say nobody in my family has it. One person came forward. They said they might have it. They have a very good story of why, but it's going to stay in lock and key in a safe where nobody's going to know about it because we're not going to share it. Joe Ledington's recipe was a lie and fake. At first I thought he was trolling people. Turns out he wanted people to believe that actually was the Colonel's handwriting and recipe. And a few videos back, I proved that it wasn't the handwriting and it wasn't the recipe. Now, we have 7 ingredients that we found between 2 recipes, 99X and Kentucky Fried Chicken's public listings. Recently, the FDA has required anything with garlic to be listed, so KFC in 2020, their packaging has listed garlic powder. They also have white pepper and black pepper on there. Due to a photo, which I show in these other videos, I want you to do your research. Salt and MSG are not included in the 11, which confirms the story Uncle Harley told the family that he always added salt to the flour after the mix was made. And the photo that they showed in 1985 does not show anything white on it, so it doesn't have salt or MSG. So get that part down. The 7 ingredients that we have, so we have 3 of them from Kentucky Fried Chicken: white, black pepper, and then garlic powder. 99X has sage, allspice, red pepper, coriander, and that's it. There's nothing else. Now, I got to talk with Mary & Kay Spices. I got to learn that 99X is not the original recipe. 99X is a recipe that the Colonel made, but it's missing something or it's different. Like he says it's close to it, but it's slightly different. Okay, so Uncle Harley made it. He gave it to 200 franchisees at KFC. They got in trouble in the 80s. They sued Mary & Kay Spices. They dropped that lawsuit. One of the stories was that they forced them to change it. They did not have to change a thing about 99X because KFC dropped the lawsuit in the 80s after filing it, because it turns out the franchisees, by agreeing to buy from Mary & Kay Spices, were the ones in violation. Mary & Kay Spices offered to make the Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe for them because Uncle Harley believed in them so much, but they already had Sexton and Stange making that recipe. So KFC said no thank you. But Uncle Harley was so upset over the way things were changing and he wanted more control over some things, so he established a connection with Mary & Kay Spices with 200 franchisees. He didn't get in trouble because he died after they were caught. But the big fish stories say that they were forced to change something. They didn't have to change a thing about 99X. Is 100% what it was in the 1960s. And the Claudia Sanders Dinner House today, they use Chicken Seasoning Plus, which is 99X, but in the Dinner House it says it's Claudia's Magic Flavor. Yahoo News reports it as Claudia's Recipe. That checked out. It made sense. And then I followed the story until I figured out that Chicken Seasoning Plus, right on the website Mary & Kay, says it's 99X plus salt. 99X is a recipe that was made for the Claudia Sanders Dinner House by the Colonel and Bill Summers. There's a lot of big fish stories out there. There's a forum called KFC 11, which is a huge waste of time, but has all of those theories in it. It has even the 7 ingredients that I found between the 2 recipes. Anyway, so what I'm getting at that, I was told that 99X is slightly different but close. So I am assuming that the public listed ingredients between the 60s and now are part of KFC's. Now this is speculation, but a speculation based off of, facts and accurate information, rather than just guessing a recipe, which I've done in the past and other people have done, or saying, hey, this is the recipe. So I'm assuming that the ingredients on Mary & Kay Spices 99X are in Kentucky Fried Chickens. They have white pepper and black pepper, which is the same as what's on KFC's. The only thing that they didn't have was garlic powder. And because that is legally required today, why doesn't Mary & Kay Spices have it on their thing? Because it's not in it. That's the one difference that I do know, because KFC has it listed, Mary & Kay Spices does not have it listed. Things that we won't find out is measurements. Things that we won't find out is locations, like the regions that these spices are harvested in. We will not figure out the brands that were originally used that Uncle Harley used. We won't know any of that stuff because there's no public documentation. Even if let's say I've been lying this whole time. I do have the recipe. Not saying I do. I'm just saying, let's say I do have it. It doesn't matter if I gave it to you, because after the fiasco that Joe Leddington pulled with his fake recipe, saying he's the nephew of the Colonel, here's the recipe. People believed it. I disproved it as a lie. And the fake recipes that I leaked last year on TikTok for fun. Like, this stuff completely discredits anything else that anybody comes forward with. Anybody, including myself, if I come forward with a recipe without any facts behind it, even if it's the full thing, if it's not in the Colonel's 100% handwriting, then you cannot believe it, period, because there's no facts behind it. Now, I give you these 7 ingredients, and then I give you the sources where you could go to find those 7, and you can believe those by doing the research yourself instead of taking my word for it. I just done the research, and I have presented it to you. So if I do have the recipe, not saying I do, but if I did, I would not tell you the whole thing, because I can't prove the whole thing to you. I could only prove to you 7 ingredients. And even if those 7 aren't accurate, they're the closest thing to it compared to everything else. There's one recipe I saw on KFC 11 that has the 7 ingredients that I found, but then they put star anise in it. Star anise is not in it. Vanilla's not in it. Star anise is not in it. There is no evidence of oregano being in it. There's no evidence of thyme being in it. Sage was mentioned in the Colonel's autobiography. He says sage and savory were 2 ingredients that he knew you could use in almost anything and it'd be good. And sage is found on 99X, a recipe that he is responsible for making. There's a connection. Documentation, a book, story from the Colonel, connection. Savory is only mentioned in that book. There's no documentation on KFC's listing, no documentation on 99X's listing that says savory is in it. Now, there's a video on Mary and K Spices that talks about cinnamon and ginger. Uncle Harley mentions it in regards to 99X or Mary and K. But I tried that, and my family that has been around to know what the recipe tasted like said it doesn't taste like it. It was good, but it didn't taste like it. So I rule out cinnamon and ginger being in it because there's no other documentation about it other than that video. He could have just been saying that Mary and K Spices uses 100% pure ingredients in general and mentioned that cinnamon and ginger were 2 of the greatest ones that they have in their stockpile, not necessarily meaning that it was in 99X itself. So we put those aside, we put salt and MSG aside, we put all the speculation aside. What we have are the ingredients that 99X has revealed and the ingredients that KFC has revealed over the years, and we could take those 2 since they're related and put them together, but we can't say that those 2 recipes are exactly the same like so many people say. A lot of people say the Claudia Sanders Dinner House serves the original recipe. They do not. They serve a original recipe, not the original recipe. A lot of people say Grace's Perfect Blend in Ireland serves it. They don't. It's a recipe that was inspired by it that Pat Grace created. Pat Grace came in 1972 to Canada before Uncle Harley gave his franchises to charity and convinced him to allow him to set up some franchises over in Ireland. After that happened, I'm not sure what transpired for Grace's Perfect Blend to be born, but he made Grace's Perfect Blend, and that's operated by his family today, but it is not the original recipe. Although a lot of people coin it as that, even on their website they say though they have ties to the Colonel, it is not his recipe. So I'm just trying to get this information out there to people so that you understand it doesn't matter who has the recipe, who doesn't have the recipe. The family is not going to reveal it. And not all the family got it. For a fact, 100% fact, Colonel Harlan Sanders did not hand the recipe through the family like an heirloom. If anybody from the family has it, it's because somebody in the family that helped mix it at the time that the Colonel owned Kentucky Fried Chicken, they decided to write it down and save it, and then they handed that through their family that way. The Colonel did not hand his secret recipe to anybody other than Governor John Y. Brown Jr. and Jack C. Massey. Those are the only people that he handed those to. Now, his wife knew it. His daughters probably knew it. Lee knew it. And Uncle Jim knew it. They knew it because they helped mix it for him while he was out franchising. That way, the franchisees all had the ingredients to use to franchise. They used to make it on the back porch in a big drum with a snow shovel, and they would stir it in the ratio that it required for that big of a mix, and then they would package it up and send it out. And that's how that worked. But I cannot stress enough that it does not matter who has the recipe and who doesn't. It doesn't matter if I've made stuff up or not. I've given you facts and sources to find the ingredients yourself. Our Discord server has all the sources to it. And if you have any questions, you could discuss them there. But there's no way that anybody is going to guess what the recipe is. No way. The only way that I could see that it could actually get out is if John Y. Brown Jr. or Jack C. Massey has shared it among their family, and their family shared it among their family and friends, which I doubt has happened, but it's possible. I don't know him or his family, so I can't say that it's been shared or not through his family. But my family has not been shared through. The people that do claim to have the recipe do not share it with everyone else in the family. We don't benefit from keeping it secret. We make no money off of it. However, we're not going to reveal what it is. A lot of people automatically assume everybody, and they assume me because my last name's Sanders, that everybody has the recipe. And that's not the case. It wasn't handed through the family. I believe Kentucky Fried Chicken still uses the original recipe. It goes against a lot of things that other people in the family have said, and the Colonel himself, I believe they still use it. It's just a lot of things change. Cake flour changed. What it's fried in has changed. The cooking time has changed. The suppliers have changed multiple times. The ownership has changed. So, I'm sure that things have changed now that the Colonel is not around anymore to maintain his quality. People can take corners. So, I hope that explains it, because people on my page are still trying to post recipes in the comments and see if I can confirm them. No recipe is it. The most accurate ones are the ones that have the 7 ingredients that we found. And those 7 ingredients is it. That's all we're going to get that is remotely close to what the recipe is or was or whatever. Because we don't have measurements. We don't have the brands. We just don't have everything. And even if I had it in front of me, there's no way for you to validate what I'm saying. You would have to take it like you took Joe Lennington's recipe before people started disproving it. You'd have to see it, go, yeah, he's in the family. Maybe they had it. Maybe this is it. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's it. But you can't say, oh, yeah, that's it. KFC will just deny it. They'll say, no, that's not it. That's not authentic, just like they did with Joe's. But they were accurate with Joe's because Joe's is fake. Look at number 4 on his recipe. That ingredient he has listed there doesn't exist. Yes, it's a typo of oregano or a misspell, but he put oregano with all I's, and that doesn't exist, and that isn't the Colonel's handwriting. And I held both up to each other after being told it was the Colonel's handwriting, and it's not. That recipe is a fake. Complete. Flat fake. No recipe online on the forum is accurate unless you have 100% confirmation, whether that is the exact handwriting of the Colonel's of his recipe, somehow you see it, you got a picture of it, whatever, or from KFC finally buckling and saying, yes, this is the recipe. Unless you have 100% confirmation, you will never know if it's right or not. Even if I reveal it, even if my cousins that claim to have it reveal it, even if Joe Lennington's recipe was 100% it, you wouldn't know it without the brand's confirmation. And that's why it just doesn't matter. People are so uptight about this recipe. It just does not matter. What I won't stand for is lies. What I won't stand for is rumors, lies that try to back up these other lies about this recipe for clout and attention. Like, if you want to leak a fake one for fun, I get it. Okay? I get it. I've done that before. It's a little funny, or used to be. It's not so much anymore. I decided I don't want to contribute to those fake recipes now that I'm actually going viral on TikTok. I want to contribute to the truth and give you guys what I could find that's the truth, that you could validate yourself. So these news articles like the Chicago Tribune can do their research and validate it themselves, whether something is it or not. They didn't do that with this recipe. They just took Joe's word for it, slapped it up on the screen and said, this is it, and everybody went bonkers over it. And if they did the research that I did, you'd be able to tell, okay, this is fake. Hardly anybody will probably see this anyways, but I hope all that makes sense. Nobody's getting the recipe. Doesn't matter who has it. Doesn't matter if I have it or not. Nobody's getting it. We only have 7 ingredients that we can say are pretty much in it based off of the public FDA required ingredients between the 1960s and the 2020s. So, yeah, get off my back about this recipe now. We have found all the information we possibly can. I know what I know. You won't know everything that I know, but you'll know everything that's in public domain that I could send your way for you to validate it. And I said this time and time again, repeating myself. This video is 15 minutes long, so make it stick in your heads. This recipe is not going to get figured out. It doesn't matter what it is. You're not getting it. You're not entitled to it. None of us are. Be happy with the facts that are there, because the facts that are there are interesting. They have some cool stories behind them. So just focus on the 7 ingredients. That gets you at least part the way there. You won't know the measurements. You can just play around with it. It's a secret. People are still going to try to figure this thing out, but you're wasting your time if you do. All right, bye.